The big meeting room on Kepler Prime Station was full of angry voices. 12 different alien species sat around a huge circle, all pointing fingers at the one human sitting alone at his table. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim kept his face calm as the aliens shouted their complaints. The room was massive, with walls made of clear crystal that showed the stars outside. Each alien group had their own special seats that fit their bodies. The bug-like Threx sat in metal chairs with holes for their extra arms. The gas-breathing Vormak floated in clear bubbles filled with their special air. The fish-like Pelagians had water tanks that let them breathe, but Hyunwoo sat in a simple black chair, wearing a plain black uniform. He looked very small compared to all the fancy aliens around him. Supreme Arbitrator Veltar was a tall crystal being who sparkled under the lights. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "The human species stands accused of serious crimes against galactic law," he announced. "You have taken over worlds without permission. You have built too many warships. You have broken our rules about not interfering with younger species." The other aliens nodded and made angry sounds. Each species had their own way of showing anger. The Threx clicked their sharp teeth. The Vormak made their gas bubbles turn red. The Pelagians splashed water in their tanks. Chancellor Mordex of the warrior Kazari hit his big metal stick on the floor. "Humans are everywhere," he growled. "They have colonies on 300 worlds. Their warships patrol space that belongs to all of us, not just them." High Priestess Lyriel of the floating Astari spoke in musical tones that somehow sounded very angry. "Humans interfere with young species," she sang. "They teach them technology and ideas that change their natural growth. This breaks our oldest laws." The accusations went on for hours. The Threx complained that humans had built military bases too close to their space. The Vormak said humans had stolen their ancient rights to mine certain asteroids. The Pelagians demanded payment for humans polluting water worlds with their presence. Through it all, Hyunwoo just sat and listened. Sometimes he wrote notes on his small computer tablet. His face never changed expression, even when the aliens said very insulting things about humans. Director Park Hyejin watched from a balcony above the main floor. She worked for human intelligence and had spent 15 years building spy networks throughout the galaxy. She knew this day was coming, but it still felt terrible to watch. Finally, Veltar called for quiet. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the human ambassador. "Ambassador Kim," the crystal being chimed, "you may now respond to these charges." Hyunwoo stood up slowly. He was not a big man and looked even smaller surrounded by all the giant aliens. But when he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the room. "The Earth Federation hears what you have said," he began. "We understand that you are upset about how fast humans have grown and spread through the galaxy." He paused and looked around the room. "We also understand that our actions have made you uncomfortable. This was not our intention, but we accept that it happened." Some aliens started to speak, but Hyunwoo raised his hand. "However, we want to be clear about something. Every single thing humans did was legal under galactic law. We checked every rule before we acted. We took over empty worlds that belonged to no one. We built ships to protect ourselves, not to attack others. We only shared knowledge with species who asked for it." The room started to get noisy again as aliens protested. Hyunwoo waited for quiet before continuing. "But we can see that our presence causes problems," he said. "So the Earth Federation has made a decision." The room went completely silent. This was not what anyone expected. They thought humans would argue or get angry or make threats. "We are leaving the Galactic Unity Council right now," Hyunwoo announced. "All human diplomats will go home within 30 days. All business partnerships with other species will end. All programs where we share culture and knowledge will stop. Humans will go back to our own part of space and have no more contact with council species." The silence was so complete that you could hear the air recycling systems humming. Even the translator machines seemed confused and took a moment to convert his words to other languages. Director Park felt her heart sink as she watched from above. 15 years of careful work building relationships across the galaxy was about to disappear. All the trust, all the connections, all the friendships would be cut off. Furthermore, Haiyan-Wu continued, human trade ships will stop visiting your worlds. Human tourists will go home. Human scientists working on joint projects will pack up and leave. We will remove ourselves completely from galactic affairs. He looked directly at each alien delegation as he spoke. We wish you peace and happiness. We hope you find the harmony you are looking for without us. The human ambassador gathered his papers and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed loudly in the silent room. As he reached the door, he turned back one last time. The galaxy asked us to leave, he said simply. So we are leaving. After Haiyan-Wu left, the aliens sat in confused silence. They had expected a fight. They had prepared for arguments, threats, maybe even violence. They had not prepared for humans to simply agree and walk away. Slowly, the aliens began to talk. Among themselves, some seemed happy that they had won. Others looked worried about what would happen next. A few seemed to realize that getting what you ask for is not always a good thing. Supreme Arbitrator Veltar tried to call the meeting back to order, but the aliens were too busy arguing among themselves. The Threks were already planning how to expand into human territory. The Khazari were discussing new trade routes. The Astari were singing about the return of galactic harmony, but some of the smarter aliens were asking different questions. Who would mediate disputes between species? Now, who would provide emergency aid during disasters? Who would keep the peace when old enemies started fighting again? These questions would soon have very ugly answers. The galaxy had just lost the one species that had been holding everything together. They just did not know it yet. As news of the human withdrawal spread across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated, others worried. All of them were about to learn that sometimes the thing you want most is the thing that will hurt you most. The moment humans walked away, the galaxy's fate was sealed. The only question was how long it would take for everyone to realize what they had lost. 6 months had passed since the humans said goodbye to the galaxy. Captain Li Dongmin guided his cargo ship through the busy space around Nexari Customs Station 12. His ship, called Soul's Pride, carried medical supplies to the human colony. World of New Bizin, this would be his last official trade run before all contact between humans and aliens ended. Li watched through his ship's windows as he flew away from the station. Something was different today. The crystal-like Nexari had many more security ships patrolling than usual. Their ships looked like floating diamonds that sparkled in the light of nearby stars. Through his radio, Li could hear pieces of secret military messages. The Nexari sounded nervous about something, but he could not understand what, far away. On the bridge of the Threx warship Hive's Vengeance, Admiral Cho Minho studied computer screens showing where human fleets were moving. The irony was not lost on him. He had been born on Earth, but when pirates destroyed his parents' research station, the bug-like Threx had adopted him. Now he commanded one of their biggest warships. The human fleets were pulling back just like they promised. But they were not breaking up and going home. Instead, they were gathering around important worlds, creating strong defensive groups that would be almost impossible to attack. This was not a retreat. This was smart repositioning. Minho had learned military strategy from both humans and Threx. He could see what other aliens missed. Humans were not running away scared. They were getting ready for something. On the beautiful world of Astari Prime, Dr. Kang Sujin packed up her laboratory equipment. For 20 years, she had worked with the floating musical Astari people to study how different species could work together. Her research had led to amazing discoveries, but now the Astari government said human scientists were no longer welcome. Sujin felt sad as she put away her research on Astari memory problems. The ethereal aliens suffered from a disease that made their elderly forget things. Her team had been very close to finding a cure. Now that work would probably die when she left. Her Astari partner, High Scholar Thywin, helped her pack. His glowing, see-through body showed his emotions through color changes, and right now he was deep blue with sadness. "This is crazy," he whispered, careful not to let other Astari hear him. Your research could save millions of our people. Sujin nodded with tears in her eyes. Politics and science rarely work well together. Maybe someone else will continue this work someday. Thywin's body flickered with doubt. The Astari Council had forbidden anyone to continue research started by humans. Their pride was more important than saving lives on the heavily protected world of New Sol. General Park Tae-hyon read intelligence reports from across human space. The pattern was clear and scary. While humans pulled back from galactic affairs, old fights between alien species were starting again. The bug-like Threx and warrior Khazari were arguing about their borders again. The gas-breathing Vormak were claiming territory that belonged to the fish-like Pelagians. The Crystal Nexari were building military bases faster than ever before. Without human peacekeepers and diplomats to help solve problems, the careful balance that had kept the galaxy peaceful for 200 years was falling apart. General Park's assistant, Colonel Yoon So-young, pointed to the most worrying news. Sir, our deep space listening posts are detecting huge fleet movements. Every major species is getting their military ready for something. Ready for what? Park asked, though he already suspected the answer. For the empty space we are leaving behind, Yoon replied grimly. The galaxy is about to remember what war looks like when humans are not around to stop it. Park looked out. His office window at the peaceful city below. People walked the streets safely, children played in parks, and everyone seemed happy and calm. Soon, this kind of peace might only exist in human space. Meanwhile, deep in space, the first signs of trouble were already showing. On mining station Kepler-7, both Threx and Khazari ships arrived at the same time to claim the same asteroid. The rock was not worth much, but both species insisted it belonged to them based on ancient laws. Station manager Kim Woo-jin, one of the few humans still working in mixed alien space, watched nervously as the two fleets faced each other. In the past, human mediators would have helped solve this dispute peacefully. Now there was no one to call for help. The Threx commander sent angry messages about hive rights that went back thousands of years. The Khazari captain responded with equally angry messages about warrior codes and battle honors. Neither side wanted to back down, and there was no neutral party to help them find a compromise. Kim knew this was how wars started. Not with grand battles or noble causes, but with small arguments that nobody could solve peacefully. He sent emergency messages to both human and alien authorities, but the responses were always the same. This is not our problem anymore. Dr. Cho Hae-won, working from her research station near Saturn, analyzed data from across the galaxy. Her job was to study how alien societies worked, and what she was seeing worried her greatly. The careful relationships between species that had taken centuries to build were breaking down in just months. We are watching 10,000 years of social progress fall apart, she wrote in her report. Species that reached the stars together are now preparing to fight each other like primitive tribes. The numbers were getting scary. Trade between different species had dropped by 60%. Scientific cooperation projects were being canceled everywhere. Military spending was increasing at rates not seen since the ancient wars that nearly destroyed the galaxy on Earth. President Kim Dae-yoon read these reports with growing concern. The leaders of the human government met in emergency sessions every day now, trying to understand what was happening and what they should do about it. Madam President, said Defense Secretary Oh Young-soo, we are getting requests for help from 17 different star systems. The galaxy is tearing itself apart, President. Kim kept her face calm, but inside she felt terrible. What are our options? According to the withdrawal agreement we signed, we have no right to interfere in alien conflicts, replied Foreign Minister Lee Se-ojun. We gave them exactly what they asked for, a galaxy without human interference. The irony was bitter and painful. For 2 centuries, humans had been criticized as aggressive warmongers who could not stop meddling in other species' business. Now, without human meddling, the galaxy was falling into chaos. Captain Nam Ji-tae commanded the hospital ship Mercy of Seoul, which was helping refugees from the growing Threx-Khazari conflict. His ship had the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy and doctors who knew how to treat all known alien species. They had saved thousands of lives. But then Nam received a desperate message from a Nexari medical station, asking for help with civilian casualties from their border fights. With the Astari, his ship could save thousands more lives, but helping would violate the withdrawal agreement. Nam stared at the message for a long time. One word from him could deploy the best medical relief operation in the galaxy, but it would also restart the cycle of resentment that led to humanity's exile. His chief doctor, Dr. Bei Yun-young, came to the bridge. "Captain, we have to help. There are children dying." Nam's finger hovered over the reply button. Finally, he made his choice. Send a response. Express our sympathy and tell them to contact their own medical authorities. Dr. Bei looked heartbroken but nodded. They were only observers now, not helpers. The galaxy had to save itself. As conflict spread across known space, a terrible truth became clear. Humanity had not been the galaxy's problem. Humanity had been the galaxy's solution to its own problems. And now that solution was gone. The first shot of the new Galactic War was fired over a worthless piece of rock floating in empty space. The mining asteroid called KP7742 contained some rare metals, but nothing that should start a war. But these were not normal times anymore. Admiral Ru Jae-sung of the Human Deep Space Monitoring Corps watched the battle begin from his hidden observation post. His ship was invisible to alien sensors, so he could watch without being seen. The Threx claimed the asteroid belonged to them because of old territorial rights. The Khazari said it was theirs as payment for a war fought 3,000 years ago. Both sides had sent big military fleets to fight over this small rock. The Threx used their favorite battle tactic: hundreds of small, fast attack ships swarming like angry insects to overwhelm enemy defenses. The Khazari responded with their massive warships, each one big enough to destroy a city. What started as a small fight quickly became a huge space battle. Ru's communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Hanbajo Ra, listened to desperate radio messages from both fleets. "Sir, both sides are calling for backup ships. This is getting out of control fast." The battle was brutal and stupid. Ships exploded in bright flashes of light. Thousands of alien soldiers died fighting over a rock that was barely worth the fuel it took to reach it. But pride and old hatred made both sides keep fighting. On Earth, President Kim Dae-yoon held an emergency meeting with all the top human military leaders. The big computer screens showed spreading wars across many star systems. The gas-breathing Vormec had attacked Pelagian water mining stations. The Crystal Nexari had completely blocked all trade routes to Astari space. Old grudges that had been kept quiet for centuries by human diplomatic pressure were now exploding across the galaxy. "Madam President," said Defense Secretary Oh Young-soo, "we are getting requests for help from 17 different star systems. The galaxy is destroying itself." President Kim's face showed no emotion, but inside she felt sick. "What is our official response?" "According to the withdrawal protocols the Galactic Council voted for, we have no authority to interfere in alien conflicts," replied Foreign Minister Lee Sao-jun. "We gave them exactly what they wanted: a galaxy without human interference." The irony was painful. For 2 centuries, humanity had been called aggressive warmongers who could not stop interfering in galactic affairs. Now, without human interference, the galaxy was learning what real war looked like. Captain Nam Jaite of the hospital ship, Mercy of Soul, was treating refugees from the Threx Khazari battle when he received a priority message. It came from a Nexari medical facility, desperately asking for help with civilian casualties from their border wars. With the Astari. Stared at the message for a long time. His ship carried the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy. His crew included doctors who specialized in treating injuries from all known alien species. They could save thousands of lives in just a few days, but under the terms of the withdrawal agreement, any help to alien populations would be considered a violation of their sovereignty. The same people who had demanded humanity's absence were now suffering because of that absence. His chief medical officer, Dr. Bei Yun-young, came to the bridge with tears in her eyes. "Captain, we have to respond. The casualties include children." Nam's hand stayed over the communication controls. One word from him could deploy the best medical relief operation in the galaxy, but it would also restart the cycle of resentment and accusations that led to humanity's exile from galactic society. "Send a standard response," Nam finally said, his voice heavy with sadness. "Express our condolences and recommend they contact their own regional medical authorities." Dr. Bay's face showed her pain, but she nodded and left to send the message. They were witnesses now, not participants. The galaxy had to save itself, even if it meant watching millions die. As the months passed, the conflicts got worse and worse. The Threx Collective split into 3 different factions that started fighting each other. The Khazari Empire broke apart when their military leaders could not agree on who should be in charge. Ancient alliances that had lasted for thousands of years collapsed overnight. Marshal Quan Young Ho stood on the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable Soul, watching long-range sensors display the destruction. The Threx had lost 40% of their outer colonies to internal fighting. The Khazari homeworld was under siege by their own former allies. The Nexari trade networks that once connected the entire galaxy had collapsed into isolated pockets of desperate commerce. The breaking point came when the Vormok used their ancient biological weapons against Pelagian population centers. These weapons had been banned for millennia, but desperation made the gas brothers desperate. Entire ocean worlds were poisoned, their ecosystems destroyed beyond any hope of recovery. The death toll reached into the billions. Admiral Shin Yujin of Human Strategic Command reviewed intelligence reports with growing horror. "Sir, our deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive refugee movements. Conservative estimates put displaced populations at over 50 billion beings across 200 star systems. The scale of the disaster was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. Species that had lived together peacefully for thousands of years were now locked in total war. The careful diplomatic framework that had maintained galactic peace had completely collapsed." Director Park Hyjin reactivated her old intelligence networks, despite the official policy of non-engagement. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The conflicts were not just about territory or resources anymore. They had become about survival itself. Each species now saw all the others as threats that had to be destroyed. Her most trusted agent, Commander Kim Woo-jin, sent secret reports from deep inside a starry space. The ethereal beings, once known for their peaceful philosophy, had begun developing weapons of incredible destructive power. Their harmony had turned into a cold, calculating desire to rule the galaxy. "The Astari High Council believes they can achieve galactic peace through conquest," Woo-jin reported. "They see the current chaos as proof that other species are naturally violent and must be controlled." Similar reports came from other parts of the galaxy. The Nexari were building massive fortress worlds designed to survive planetary bombardment. The surviving Pelagians had retreated to their deepest ocean trenches, coming out only to launch devastating surprise attacks on surface installations. Trust, once the foundation of galactic civilization, had become completely extinct. Professor Yang Minji of the Human Institute for Alien Studies published a secret analysis that reached the highest levels of government. Her conclusion was simple and terrifying. The galaxy was experiencing a complete failure of civilization itself. "Without neutral mediators," she wrote, "conflicts that could once be solved through diplomacy have become total warfare. Each species is now trapped in a situation where any sign of weakness means death." The final disaster came when a joint Nexari-Vormak fleet attacked the neutral station of Kepler Prime. This was the same station where humanity had been expelled from galactic affairs. The attack was meant to prevent the Astari from using the station as a military base, but it resulted in the complete destruction of the galaxy's last remaining neutral ground. Ambassador Hen Woo Kim, now retired to a quiet farm on New Korea, watched the news coverage with sad understanding. The place where he had delivered humanity's final diplomatic speech to the galaxy was now an expanding cloud of debris. With its destruction died the last hope for negotiated peace. The galaxy that had expelled humanity for being too aggressive had destroyed itself through unrestrained aggression. The irony would have been funny if so many people were not dying. On Earth, emergency sessions of the Global Council reached a terrible conclusion. The galaxy needed to be left alone to face the consequences of its choices. President Kim Dae-yoon authorized Protocol 7, complete lockdown of human space. All borders were sealed, all external communications stopped, all monitoring stations went dark. Humanity pulled back into itself, leaving the galaxy to deal with what it had created. As defensive barriers activated around human territory, the galaxy lost its last hope for outside help. The species that had once demanded freedom from human influence now faced a future shaped entirely by their own failures. 5 years had passed since humanity completely withdrew from galactic affairs, and the galaxy had learned the true cost of getting what it asked for. Captain Moon Jae-in commanded the spy ship Silent Observer, one of the few human vessels still operating outside their own territory. Her mission was simple: watch and record what had happened to galactic civilization. Her reports made for horrible reading. The Threx Collective no longer existed as a unified species. Their hive worlds had been consumed by civil war as different sub-colonies fought for control. The species that once prided itself on perfect unity had broken into dozens of warring factions, each claiming to represent the true collective consciousness. Their famous teamwork had become the very weapon that destroyed them. The mighty Khazari Empire had fallen back into feudalism. Their great war fleets now served as private armies for various warlords, raiding each other's territories in an endless cycle of revenge. The military discipline that once made them the galaxy's most feared warriors had become a curse that turned them against each other. Dr. Cho Ha-won, humanity's leading expert on galactic sociology, analyzed the data from her research station on Titan. Her conclusions painted a picture of complete civilizational collapse. "We are witnessing the reversal of 10,000 years of social evolution," she reported. Species that achieved interstellar travel are now fighting like primitive tribes. The numbers were staggering and heartbreaking. The galactic population had decreased by 60%. Interstellar trade had virtually stopped. Technological advancement had ended completely as all resources were devoted to warfare. The galaxy was experiencing a dark age that might last for thousands of years. The Vormuk homeworld was now completely uninhabitable, poisoned by their own biological weapons. The proud gas breathers had made their planet toxic in their desperation to create weapons against their enemies. Now the survivors lived in sealed habitats scattered across space, slowly dying as their equipment failed. The Pelagians faced extinction. Their population had been reduced to scattered groups hiding in the deepest ocean trenches of remote worlds. The fish-like beings who once controlled vast underwater cities now lived like frightened animals, afraid to come to the surface. The Nexari crystal cities stood dark and abandoned, their beautiful structures cracked and broken. The species that had once facilitated trade across the galaxy had seen their empire collapse into anarchy. Their perfect crystal forms were now scattered across 100 dead worlds. Even the ethereal Astari, once paragons of peace and wisdom, had become something terrible. Their harmony had twisted into a cold desire for domination. They developed weapons that could destroy the minds of other species, turning proud warriors into mindless slaves. On New Sol, General Park Tae-hyun received a transmission that changed everything. It came through emergency frequencies that had not been used in decades. The message was from the remnants of the Galactic Unity Council, and it was desperate. The transmission was weak and broken, passing through damaged relay stations and improvised communication networks. But the message was clear enough to understand, and shocking enough to send waves of surprise through human leadership. Speaker Lauren of the surviving Astari delegation appeared on the screen. Her ethereal beauty was gone, replaced by exhaustion and desperation. Her usually perfect harmonic voice cracked with emotion as she spoke. "To the representatives of humanity," she began, and then stopped as if the words were too difficult to Say, we were wrong. General Park had to sit down. In their entire recorded history, no member of the Galactic Council had ever admitted to being wrong about anything. Their pride had been absolute, their certainty complete. Now this broken figure was saying the impossible. We believed, Lauren continued, her voice getting stronger, that galactic peace could be maintained without human mediation. We believed that your departure would allow us to achieve harmony through our own wisdom. We were catastrophically mistaken. The transmission included detailed reports of the ongoing devastation. Worlds burning, species dying, entire civilizations collapsing into barbarism. The galaxy that had once seemed so advanced and wise had revealed itself to be held together only by human influence. We do not ask for your forgiveness, Lauren sighed, her image flickering as the damaged communication system struggled. We do not deserve it. We have destroyed everything we claim to protect, but we ask for your help. Not as the inferior species we once claimed you to be, but as the equals we should have recognized you as from the beginning. President Kim Dae-yoon called an emergency meeting of the Human High Command. The debate was intense and emotional. Many leaders had lost friends and colleagues during the withdrawal. The pain of being rejected by the galaxy still hurt. Defense Secretary Oh Young-soo argued for continued isolation. They made their choice. They called us warmongers and threw us out. Let them live with the consequences. But Foreign Minister Lee Seo-jin presented a different view. The question is not what they deserve. The question is what kind of species we want to be. Do we let 60 billion sentient beings die just to prove we were right? Admiral Ru Jae-sung provided the military assessment. Our forces are intact and more advanced than anything left in the galaxy. If we choose to intervene, we could end most conflicts within months. But the cost would be enormous, and there is no guarantee the aliens would not turn on us again once the crisis passes. The moral weight of the decision was crushing. Humanity had the power to save the galaxy, but also the right to refuse. They had been cast out when they tried to help before. Why should they risk their own people for species that had rejected them? Intelligence Director Park Hae-jin provided the most sobering assessment. If we do nothing, our projections show complete galactic civilizational collapse within 10 years. If we intervene successfully, we face the possibility of becoming permanent galactic peacekeepers. If we intervene and fail, we risk being destroyed along with everyone else. The room fell silent as the weight of choice settled on everyone present. Outside the windows of the meeting room, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. Humanity had built a good life in isolation. They had art, science, exploration, and peace. Why risk all of that for people who had rejected them? President Kim stood before the assembled leadership of humanity, knowing that history would judge whatever decision she made. The fate of trillions of beings across the galaxy rested in her hands. 5 years ago, she said slowly, the galaxy told us we were the problem. Today, they are asking us to be the solution. The irony is not lost on me, she paused, looking at each person in the room. These were good people who had served humanity well. They deserved to know her reasoning before she committed them to a path that might lead to disaster. But we are not the same species we were 5 years ago. We have had time to think, to grow, to understand our own mistakes. Perhaps isolation has taught us wisdom that involvement never could. Her decision, when it came, surprised everyone in the room. We will respond to their plea, she announced. But not as conquerors or saviors. We will return as partners, as equals seeking to rebuild what was lost together. The age of human dominance is over. The age of true cooperation must now begin. The room erupted in discussion. Some supported the decision, others opposed it, but all recognized its historic importance. Humanity was about to return to a galaxy that desperately needed them, but this time as partners rather than leaders. The preparations began immediately. Medical ships, engineering vessels, and diplomatic missions were organized. But most importantly, negotiators were trained in the hard lessons humanity had learned during its exile. The galaxy was about to discover that Sometimes the greatest strength comes from admitting weakness, and sometimes the best response to rejection is to offer help anyway. Captain Park Subin stood on the bridge of the humanitarian vessel New Hope as it crossed the boundary of human space for the first time in 5 years. Her ship carried medical supplies, engineering equipment, and most importantly, hope itself. Behind her followed a fleet of 50 other human ships, each loaded with everything needed to begin rebuilding a shattered galaxy. The New Hope was not a warship. It had no weapons, no armor, no shields designed for battle. Instead, it carried the most advanced medical bay in human space, fabrication units that could build entire cities, and a crew trained in every aspect of disaster relief. This was humanity's answer to the galaxy's plea for help. "Captain," called Communications Officer Yu Hansal from her station, "we are receiving signals from the Kepler Remnant Station. They are requesting immediate medical assistance for Threx refugees." Subin nodded. "Set course for Kepler Station. Signal the medical ships to prepare for massive casualty treatment." As the human fleet approached the refugee station, the scale of the galactic disaster became clear. The station was designed to hold 10,000 beings, but sensors showed over 50,000 refugees crammed into every available space. The life support systems were failing, and dozens were dying every hour. Dr. Kim Junho, the fleet's chief medical officer, reviewed the casualty reports with growing alarm. "Captain, we have malnutrition, disease outbreaks, radiation poisoning, and trauma cases beyond counting. Some of these people have been fleeing from war zones for years." Within hours of arrival, human medical teams were working alongside alien doctors to save lives. The barriers of species and politics meant nothing in the face of suffering. Threx hive workers shared medical supplies with Khazari warriors. Nexari engineers worked with human technicians to repair life support systems. Commander Li Teho led the engineering teams that began expanding the station's capacity. "We can triple their life support capability in 6 days," he reported. "But we need permission from the station authorities first." Station manager Velanok, a Nexari whose crystal body showed stress fractures from months of overwork, initially refused human help. "We cannot accept charity from those we wronged," he said through broken harmonic tones. Captain Subin met with him privately in his damaged office. "This is not charity," she said gently. "This is what neighbors do for each other. We are not here as conquerors or saviors. We are here as partners in rebuilding." It took 3 days of careful negotiation, but eventually Velanok agreed to accept human assistance. The breakthrough came when his own daughter, a young Nexari named Silanara, was dying from radiation poisoning that only human medical technology could treat. As Dr. Kim's team saved the young Nexari's life, barriers began to break down throughout the station. Aliens who had been taught to distrust humans saw them working alongside alien doctors with no thought of reward or recognition. The humans asked for nothing except the chance to help. Admiral Ru Jae-sung arrived with the second wave of human ships, carrying heavier equipment and more specialized personnel. His mission was to begin establishing communication networks between the scattered refugee populations across the galaxy. "The situation is worse than we imagined," he reported to Earth. "Entire species have lost contact with their homeworlds. Some don't even know if their governments still exist." The work was slow and dangerous. Many regions of space were still active war zones. Human ships had to navigate through minefields, avoid patrols of desperate alien fleets, and constantly prove their peaceful intentions. Captain Nam Jiaite of the hospital ship Mercy of Seoul finally got permission to provide medical aid to alien populations. His first stop was a Pelagian refugee camp hidden in the methane clouds of a gas giant. The fish-like beings had been living in improvised habitats for 2 years, slowly dying as their equipment failed. "Dr. Bay," Nam called to his chief medical officer, "prepare the deep-sea medical pods. We are going to save some lives today." Dr. Bay Yun-young smiled for the first time in years. "It is good to be helping again, Captain." The Pelagian elder mother, title singer of Deep Currents, initially refused human aid. "Why do you help those who cast you out?" she asked through her translator. "Because that is who we are," Nam replied simply. We help because it is right, not because it is easy. As human medical teams worked to save dying Pelagians, word spread through the refugee networks. The humans had returned, not as conquerors, seeking revenge, but as healers offering hope on Earth. President Kim Dae-yoon received daily reports from the relief operations. The scale of destruction was overwhelming, but so was the determination of human crews to make a difference. More importantly, aliens were beginning to respond positively to human presence. Madam President, reported Foreign Minister Lee Seo-jin, we are receiving formal requests for assistance from the remnant governments of 6 different species. They are asking for help with everything from medical aid to infrastructure rebuilding. The real breakthrough came when Ambassador Hyun-woo Kim, brought out of retirement for this crucial mission, received an invitation to attend a gathering of surviving alien leaders on the rebuilt Kepler Prime Station. The station that had once been destroyed was now a symbol of cooperation. Human engineers had worked with alien crews to rebuild it as a neutral meeting place. The new design incorporated architectural elements from all the major species, creating something beautiful and unified. The meeting room was very different from 5 years ago. Instead of species seated in hierarchical positions, the arrangement was circular, with no single position of authority. Human representatives sat next to Astari delegates, who sat next to Threx ambassadors, who sat next to reformed Khazari council members. Speaker Lauren of the Astari spoke first. Her ethereal beauty had returned as peace allowed her people to heal. 5 years ago, we made a terrible mistake born of pride and fear. We blame humanity for our own failures to cooperate with each other. Chancellor Mordix of the reformed Khazari nodded his massive head. We thought strength came from standing alone. We learned too late that true strength comes from standing together. The surviving Threx representative Hivemind Eco 7 clicked its agreement. The collective understands now that diversity creates strength, not weakness. We wish to learn this wisdom from humanity. Ambassador Kim listened to each species acknowledge their mistakes and express hope for the future. Finally, he stood to respond. The human species holds no grudges, he said. We have all learned hard lessons from these years of separation. Perhaps it is time to build something better than what came before. Over the following months, a new galactic civilization began to emerge. It was smaller than before, built from the ashes of the old. But it was stronger because it was built on true cooperation rather than political convenience. The Galactic Cooperation Council replaced the old Unity Council. Instead of majority rule, decisions required consensus. Instead of species hierarchies, there was true equality. Most importantly, instead of one species bearing the burden of peacekeeping, all species shared that responsibility. Dr. Kang Soo-jin returned to Astari Space to continue her research on memory disorders. This time, she was welcomed not as a human scientist, but as a galactic citizen contributing to the common good. Her breakthrough treatment saved millions of Astari elders and became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Captain Lee Dong-min resumed his trade runs, but now his cargo holds carried supplies for reconstruction projects involving multiple species. The Soul's Pride became a symbol of renewed galactic commerce. General Park Tae-hyun established the Galactic Peace Corps, with volunteers from all species working together to prevent conflicts before they started. Former enemies trained side by side, learning that their similarities were greater than their differences. 10 years after humanity's return, Ambassador Hyun-woo Kim stood once again in the chambers of the Galactic Council. But this time, the chamber represented something new, a true partnership of equals working toward common goals. The session will come to order, he said, his voice carrying the same calm authority it had held decades ago. Today's agenda, the joint colonization proposal for the Andromeda Gateway project. The galaxy that once feared human expansion now eagerly participated in it. Together they reached for the stars not as conquerors but as partners in the greatest adventure of all. The future, the moment humans walked away, the galaxy learned the price of pride. The moment humans returned, the galaxy learned the value of humility. And in that lesson, a new age of true cooperation was born. Years later, when young beings of all species learned a galactic history, They would study this period as the Great Lesson. They would learn how pride nearly destroyed everything, and how humility saved it all. The galaxy was whole again, stronger than it had ever been. And at its heart was a simple truth that had taken so much pain to learn: no one species, no matter how advanced or powerful, could thrive alone. Only together could they reach the stars and build a future worthy of their dreams. The moment humans walked away had indeed brought conflict, but their return had brought something far more precious: the wisdom to never walk away from each other again.